All right, guys. Hey, what's up? We are here. We're still working through a few things to try to make sure this is playing on Facebook for you all. So, Kelsey, let's do this. As we're starting this out, I want you to talk a little bit about some of the things that you like about Cherokee, why Cherokee is a lake that, we've started out at Cherokee a lot.
Oh, yeah.
As a club. And,
definitely.
And it seems like Cherokee is a favorite. Why do you think, I want you to talk to us a little bit, why do you think that Cherokee is a favorite? All right, we're live on Facebook, Kelsey, so I think we're good to roll.
All right.
Check your screen there.
I'm going
see
to
what we got
refresh
going
and
on.
we'll try and see if it's up here now.
I'm showing a live video.
All right. Well, hopefully it'll just pop up here in a second, guys. Sorry.
YouTube's a lot simpler. I'm going to say that, guys. Facebook
definitely
has a lot of little nuances that absolutely drive me nuts. So, anyways, all right, here we go. So Kelsey, tell me just a little bit. Why do you think Cherokee is a lake that a lot of people like to start out at? What about it plays into their hands?
This time of year, definitely. Depending on whether you're dealing with, our weather's unpredictable. Look at what we're dealing with right now this week.
Definitely.
It's definitely a lot warmer than it has been. But it's gonna cool down a little bit coming up. But what we want to look at going into this this tournament, and this why we choose Cherokee for our start out tournament, is really smallmouth. Those play key in these colder temperatures.
Definitely. So I agree for that one in a major way. That smallmouth around here, they don't seem to be as affected by these cold fronts and stuff, and they
definitely
seem to. They'll still play on these days where you have a lot of fronts rolling through.
Yes.
Where these largemouth can get really finicky, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that people like to do. You can go crank shallow. You can still go largemouth fish really well. So it does play to both sides if you like to go fish up shallow or if you want to go fish up deep.
And really, you think about it, we've got a front getting ready to move through. It's gonna cool down a little bit, but you got to think there's probably going to be some warm rain in that.
Yeah, now definitely. So you're going to have that warm weather coming in.
Yeah, you're probably going to have some warm water coming in. So those fish may make a move. Some of the, you may see somebody come in with some good largemouth.
It could happen.
I would say there's a slim chance of that, but there's still a possibility somebody go get in those.
And we'll get into that, guys. Right now, we're giving everybody a little bit of time to jump on here and start viewing. We're making sure we got everything working. We got some people viewing on Facebook now. Guys, if you've got some questions or anything, we're going to be talking about what's going to be going on this weekend. We're kicking off the season for the TNCBA, and it is our first event of the 2022 season. We are going to be on Cherokee Lake on the 19th this Saturday. We're going out at Safe Light, which right now, Kelsey, Safe Light, it's starting to break daylight at 7, but it's still not quite ready to run. So I think probably around that 7:15 time.
7:15.
I'll send out an email and make a call on when we will be looking to blast on Thursday or Friday. And guys, if you see us in here messing with a lot of stuff, we're still looking at feeds, checking with audio. We're getting used to this whole streaming thing, but we enjoy having y'all here. So if y'all have questions, y'all post that on YouTube or Facebook in the chat comment section, and hopefully we'll answer some of your questions. Be telling us what you think it's going to take to win this tournament. Be telling us what you think is going to be the major technique or the bait that's going to be playing in this event, and we'll answer some of those questions and talk back to y'all about that and run through those. But again, so we're blasting off from 25E. We're going to launch from there. We're going to be going at Safe Light. There's going to be a lot of other tournaments going out on the lake that day. Several other tournaments even going out from the 25E. You've got some going out of Falls Creek. So get there early, guys. Be prepared for that. Understand that you're going to need to take your time and be patient.
Oh, yeah.
I know that we've got some cold night coming in for that, which we'll get into all the weather and stuff and be discussing that. But I do want to talk about the fact that getting there early and taking your time is going to relieve some of that stress, and it's going to help us out. And we're going to idle straight across over there to, not into Turkey Creek, but there's a pocket just down the way onto that main bluff that's right across from 25E that you can look from the parking lot and see. And we're going to stage up right there, Kelsey, and hopefully get people out of there easily and probably a little bit before some of those other events that are going on. I know some of them are taking off out of there at 8 o'clock, so we'll beat some of those out of there. We've got a Fishers... I think it was a Fishers of Men, maybe. There's something going out of the dam. I can't remember exactly what it was. It might not have been a Fishers of Men. I might be wrong on that, but there is one going out of the dam that we'll be watching. Hey, Hey, how you doing? David from Virginia, buddy. Glad you tuned in with us. And guys, we've got a lot of people from that Southwest Virginia area that have come and started fishing with us, and we love having people coming to us from kind of that area, that region, that come down and fish these East Tennessee lakes with us. So, Kelsey, we're going to be kind of doing a rundown of what's going on this weekend. We're going to talk about the Tennessee Team Trail results because I always like to look at some events that are happening before our event to kind of get an idea of what to expect. That way I'm not like going down there thinking it's going to be insanely awesome or thinking it's going to be horrible, and really it gives you a good vibe of what the lake's doing and what to be thinking about. And like you just talked about with Cherokee, whenever I sit down and look and I see a 5 bass limit of smallmouth weighed in on Cherokee, I'm thinking, all right, down the lake that people are focusing on, that's the more consistent bite. So we'll be taking a look at that here in just a second. We're going to talk about the weather forecast, what the water's doing. Then we're going to take a quick commercial break and say thank you to some of our partners and that are making this happen for us, guys. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what I saw in practice from last weekend, talk about maybe what you think your game plan is going to be going into this Saturday. I'll share my game plan and our predictions, and hopefully we're going to answer some of y'all's questions and or talk about some of y'all's predictions as well. So, Kelsey, here's what we're setting up for based on Tennessee Team Trail. Tennessee Team Trail had 3 18-pound bags. It was super, super tight up there at the top. Smallmouth in those bags. So, as I just said, that tells me down the lake is going to play a big part. And I'll talk about why here in a little bit when I talk about what I saw. But one thing I noticed is back to 50th. 50th place is where they got paid. 50th place was 4 pounds. Wasn't that 4 pound mark. So that tells me that those weights dropped off really, really quick. You know, you don't expect everybody to catch 18 pounds, 16 pounds. But you know, if the lake was on and those fish were easy to target, they were biting really well, you'd expect to see that 50th place a little bit closer into the the 10 to 11 pound mark, wouldn't you?
You can definitely tell that in that case there was probably those guys that probably done that. They've been fishing through the winter out there. They've probably been following those fish for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I'm going to say that. I mean, that's probably more or less what happens there in that case. I mean,
once they do set up in those winter haunts,
they're going to hang out there,
and they're going to stay there. The question is on one day to the next, what are they going to bite? Are they going to be active? Are they going to be inactive? We really, really know that in that wintertime, you know, these fish, their metabolism is at their lowest and is super slow, so they might not eat every single day. So you've got to have a few different schools. And when I was down there for practice, I won't get into my practice yet, but looking at the boats that were out there, you had a lot of people down the lake. You could tell that there was a lot of people dropping on them. You had a lot of people around the islands and maybe throwing Kitex. I did see people on the bluffs, which, you know, they're probably out there tight lining, which is becoming more and more of a regular thing that you see this time of year, which I do think that that's going to play heavily whenever we get to this point. To Saturday, but you know, I still, in my heart, from what I saw, I feel like if you can go down there and catch those fish on the lower end and get them to bite and locate them, that's probably going to be your most consistent bite in my mind. But the thing is, you just talked about it. These guys that are practicing, they're putting in tons of time to be able to locate those fish, and sometimes you can idle through a spot and they're there one day, they're gone the next. They might move just a little bit,
and just whether they're active at that time. I mean, you know just as well as I do. I mean, you get up here on Holston or Cherokee. I mean, any of these lakes around here this time of year, you can find them, and some days you could drop a stick of dynamite on them, and they would
nothing would happen.
Nothing would happen.
Well, I'll say this: whenever I talked to Wayne Winchester after we got off the water on Saturday down there, and they had been down on Friday before us, and they had struggled a little bit, and even when they came up to Watauga, they struggled on Saturday, and it was a little bit off, and what he said is, like, you could find those bait balls, but it was hard to find bass in them, whether they were suspended off somewhere else or they just weren't with the bait balls. So just simply finding bait doesn't always mean that you're going to find the fish, and if you've got to spend, if you're like some of us where, you know, you're not spending multiple days on the water, you're going down just for Saturday, it's hard to sacrifice some time to idle around and graph for those fish and see what's going on. So you kind of, some people a lot of times will defer to, let's hit the bank. You know that you can go down a bank. You know that you can get on these bluffs and channel swings.
And that's where you're going to see those guys running those bluff walls and things like that. Because
definitely.
I mean, those are always places that these fish are going to set up any time of year. I mean, you know that. I mean, you can run down those banks, throw a tight line, or you can throw a Kitech parallel with that bank and just let it kind of pendulum back and just slow roll it through the water column, and you can pick up a few fish that way. I mean,
so looking at the team trail event that we saw from this past weekend, there is that possibility. Somebody could catch 18, but again, with the amount of time we spend on the water, I don't see us getting to that point maybe, and maybe somebody does jump on them, but I see smallmouth being your more consistent play, but I also know that it's going to taper off. I don't expect for everybody to be rolling in there with even a limit. I see it being tougher than that with what I saw from the Tennessee team trail.
I would say about 85% of the fish that we're going to see come Saturday are going to be smallmouth. Yeah, I'm going to say there will be a largemouth brought in somewhere. Somebody will catch one out of the back of a creek somewhere.
And there's
a
high likelihood that largemouth, somebody will come in with a largemouth. That is our biggest fish of the tournament because they typically do have a little bit more meat on their bones than the smallmouth. So what I want to pull up now, guys, so we've talked about the Tennessee team trail and what we had going on there. I just want to overlay this for you really quick. So what we're looking at here is our forecast. And yeah, the weather is great today. It was super warm, super beautiful outside, and we have a very warm day tomorrow. Going to be up in the low 70s down there in Morristown. So I think 71 or 72 is what I saw. And you can see here, it says 72.
72, yeah.
But then boom, the next
42.
one there, we're down to 42 on Friday. We've got a major front rolling through Thursday night into Friday. So you got a cold front coming through. And then there's that dreaded bluebird sky on Saturday and Sunday, which thankfully we're on Saturday, not fishing that third day because we both know that it gets super, super tough whenever you are on that third day of the front. So I'm thankful that we're not on the third day of the post-frontal, but we are still going to be dealing with post-frontal conditions. We got a 25-degree morning. So to go back to our talk about the ramp, guys, be courteous when you're pulling out. Don't get in a hurry. Don't drag water up that ramp. Take your time. Pull out slow. Let it drain, and just be thoughtful of the other people around you and stuff, so that they're not having to deal with an icy ramp at 25 degrees. And hopefully we won't have much of that. We've definitely seen it get colder. I know we've been down on Cherokee before, and I think it was in the teens when we first put in, maybe even the single digits. And that was the day that it never even got above freezing, and everybody in the club zeroed. That was probably by far the worst day that I've seen down there. So our weather pattern, and the reason I like to look at this, guys, is it gives me a right mindset. I'm not going to go down there, and if I don't have a fish in the first hour or two, I'm not going to get demoralized, right, Kelsey?
No, definitely not. Because I mean, especially this time of year, we know it's cold.
Yeah.
I mean, these fish don't like it neither. Yep. We don't like it, but I mean, the bite will warm up as the day does as well.
Right. So know that that's going on. Know that you're post frontal. The bite's going to be a little finicky, and that just helps you with your mindset as you go through this. That you're not expecting to blow the doors off of them first thing in the morning, and you're going to be a little bit more methodical and take your time and not freak out. You can't have those wheels coming off.
Oh, yeah. No, I foresee a lot of people not catching a lot of their fish till the end of the day. I mean, towards the end of the day. I mean, it's just the way it goes this time of year.
That's the way it goes. So you hang in there, you fish all day long to pick up that limit. Then you can see here that I've got the lunar table that's on here. We got a rating of 0 to 100. 100 being like the most epic day that you could possibly have as far as a value goes, with like your moon phase and all of that. And we do have one good thing going for us. It is a full moon. So these fish do get more active at that time. You know, we know, I can tell you just from being around my kids at school, as a full moon rolls in, I about lose my mind sometimes.
If any of y'all drive 26, you ought to know that as well. I mean, it's crazy.
It's dangerous whenever a full moon rolls in.
Daytona, son.
So you can see here that there is a peak in the middle of the night whenever that moon is overhead, that full moon. But then you go on into the morning, we have another small peak. It slacks off a little bit going towards the afternoon, and then it's going to be climbing as we come to our check-in time. And our check-in time is 3 o'clock. And like Kelsey said, there's going to be the perfect opportunity for another bite right there towards the end of the day as another feeding window and that moon gets underfoot. So guys, I still like to pay attention to those just so I kind of have an idea that there might be a feeding window. And if you watch like these Major League Fishing guys as they talk about a lot of stuff, they're always talking about, they love the score tracker because it tells them they know when the fish are starting to bite.
Yeah, they realize that things are starting to heat up.
And they can say, okay, I'm either in the right area or I need to change areas or something about this needs to change up because bites are happening. So that tells them. So those bite windows, guys, are important for you all. So keep those in mind as you go throughout the day. And then, of course, the water level is always a big one with our TVA lakes because the way these lakes fluctuate, it plays a big role in where these fish are going to set up, what they're going to do, if it blows out your game plan, if it gets blown out by mud. You can see here on the operating guide in the lower right-hand corner, you can tell, and that blue line is the line of this year. And you can see, of course, last year what happened there. But with that blue line, you see that they sucked the bottom out of it there towards the end of January, middle of January, going into February. And then it has risen back up a few feet, and it seemed to have leveled off. So I'm really liking the fact that we got some stable water, and that's going to help us as far as those fish stabilizing some too. But, Kelsey, it depends on this rain. I know, like, earlier in the week, the forecast was, excuse me, guys, it was for, like, half an inch to an inch of rain. I don't see that now, but if the water starts to climb a little bit, what might that help us with if it keeps kind of stabilizing and creeping up? You think that'll help our shallow bite out a little bit? And
I would almost say that, that's going to help out that bite a little bit. I mean, you got to think if what we're looking at with this front coming in, it's got a lot of warm air in front of it. So, I mean, that rain's going to be coming in. I've got my fingers crossed for it to be a little bit warmer, that water to coming in. And that could light those creeks and those rock banks up.
Yeah, man, those fish like to nose up when the water's moving up. Guys, one thing I do want to say, those of you that are watching, we got a few of you on here, be sure to share this on your page. Hit that share button down there to send it out to more people, guys. Again, this is something new to us, new to the club, and the whole idea is to share information with you all and have an opportunity just to reach even more people. So we got our weather. We got our water. You can see the predicted data there on the top right. Right now, we're looking stable, which is what I like to see. So the biggest thing for me is going to be, what does this rain do? And is it going to put a lot of mud into that water? Is it going to bring that water up? Is the TVA going to panic because they've got so much rain coming up this way and they're going to start to pull it down? And typically, I think what I saw on the forecast is there's going to be more rain below us, so they may hold our lakes, let them fill up a little bit,
and that'll be a big benefit for us. I think going into this, definitely,
because I would much rather it fill up than them be sucking the bottom out of it. That takes away a lot of that shallow bite.
Well, you know just as well as I do, when that water's coming up, the fishing's gonna be better than it is if it's going down. So
most definitely, most definitely. Well, guys, here's what we're gonna do. So our plan is, we kind of talked about what's going on. Like I said, we're gonna be blasting out a 25E safe flight. Check-in time is gonna be 3 o'clock. Right now we got about 20 boats showing up this Saturday. I know some guys have had some different things come up. They're not gonna be able to make it. We just had Gabbard and them had a child at the East Tennessee Children's Home get test positive for COVID, so they're under quarantine. He's not going to be able to make it, unfortunately. But guys, like I posted yesterday, if you are looking for some tackle needs, one of our big partners is Piney Pond. They are our Angler of the Year sponsors. Go over there to Piney Pond and Piney Flats. Hook yourself up with some awesome tackle. They got a great selection over there now. But what we're going to do is, when we come back after this real short break, we are going to talk about what I saw down there in practice on Saturday, talk about what our game plans are going to be going ahead from that, and just real quick predictions before we wrap up this preview show of Cherokee. So guys, really quick, check out this commercial. TNCBA Real Talk Live is brought to you by Tri-City Logistics, Uncle Ray's Beyond Good, and Knoxville TVA Employees Credit Union.
Today's the day to explore the journey ahead. Enjoy life's little moments, because they're all around us, in every smile and in every laugh. Cherish the moments that will last a lifetime. With a partner that lasts a lifetime. Enjoy every moment.
Knoxville TVA Employees Credit Union. Join us now.
All right, guys, so welcome back. And again, we want to say thank you to those sponsors that we have that are making this possible for us. We really appreciate them and what they've meant to us. David's got a question here for us that we want to hit on really quickly. He asked us, do you guys think that there is any truth about the old saying, fish the north bank in the wintertime? I 100% agree with you on that one.
Definitely.
Because what's going on, that northern bank, and sometimes you'll hear us talk about southern facing. So the northern banks, the northern pockets on these lakes, they're receiving the most sunlight. Okay, not to get into a whole science lesson with everybody, but again, as our Earth it was tilted away during this wintertime, that sun's lower in the sky, so the angle of that sunlight, it's not going to hit those southern banks, which are facing the north as much. So on Cherokee, the side of the lake we're discussing is towards Kentucky. We're talking about German Creek. We're talking about Granger County Park, and those on that side of the lake. So as they warm up, you're going to be looking for those pockets to warm up faster. So those fish are going to be moving in there. It definitely plays those northern banks. I feel like it plays a little bit more, Kelsey, as we get closer to that pre-spawn spawn, because those fish are going to move into those areas to stage. But thinking about our afternoon bite, I definitely like a northern bank in the afternoon because it's going to get all that sunlight. That rock's going to be warming up. We got a lot of limestone. We got a lot of red clay down here on Cherokee. So it's receiving a ton of sunlight, and that's going to be my warmest water. So if I'm going to find any fish that slide shallow,
that's where you're going to find them. Yeah, definitely.
That's where you're going to go. So yes, there is definitely, David, some very much truth to that fish in those northern banks. That doesn't mean that, and again, those north banks facing the south, doesn't mean you won't find some fish there on the shadier side. You are going to find those. They just might be a little bit behind what the others are, especially, as I said, like as we get to this pre-spawn and spawn time. But if I was going to have that game plan, as we're going to talk about here in a little bit, when I go shallow and I put that crankbait in my hand, or maybe even a chatterbait I might put in my hand this Saturday, I'm going to slide over to that northern side where I've got sun beating down on it. You saw that forecast. There's going to be tons of sun. Thank you for that question, David. And guys, if y'all have any more, keep putting those on here. We'll talk to y'all about those. So let me talk about practice really quick, Kelsey. And I went down Saturday, and when I got down there, we put in at Falls Creek. It wasn't a warm day by any means. It was kind of, I think that was the day that, like, it was low 40s that night or maybe upper 30s.
Yeah, it was cooler that day.
But then the weather was kind of deteriorating all day long. It never really got super warm. But when we got down there and put in at Falls Creek, the first thing I noticed was how stained the water is. So that's one thing I wanted to let y'all know is that I really thought that the rain that we had, that heavy rain, had enough time to get out of the system.
Yeah, you would think.
But
sure.
But when you look back at that
definitely.
water level and how it was fluctuating, TVA's not been pulling water.
Mm-hmm.
So when they don't pull the water, they've been letting it fill up, that it just gets stagnant. So that mud just sits. So from Falls Creek, and I didn't go up above Falls Creek, I went down. From Falls Creek all the way down to the cut through at German Creek was very stained, more stained than I see. I mean, I typically see some color, thinking about 1 foot to 2 foot of visibility of some stain. This was 6 to 7 inches, and I was like, I was blown away. And you could definitely tell it because we knew that the Tennessee team trail was going out of 25E, and as we were coming down and those guys were blasting off, I did not see very many people coming up our way.
Oh yeah.
And out of the 100 boats or so that they had, the majority of them went down. And I'm sure they had seen that same deal. But the one good thing is that mud's been there for a while. And I shouldn't say mud because it wasn't to the point of chocolate milk with that stain.
Yeah.
So that's going to help those fish stabilize. So I went on down, Water temperature, guys, on the main lake at the start of the day was 43 degrees, so it is very cold. And it did warm up to 46. Now, Winchester told me that on Friday when he was down there in the backs of the creeks, it was bumping up to 47, 48.
Okay.
So going back to what David was talking about with that sun and what we were talking about with an afternoon bite, that the backs of those creeks are starting to creep up there with as much sunlight as we're getting and these warm days like today and tomorrow. So I stayed on the main lake, and the biggest thing I do this time of year, guys, and I'm gonna put this picture up here on the screen for y'all to see as I describe this, but I focus on guts or drains. You hear them called guts, drains, ditches. I've put some red dots here on the map to show you kind of, these are the mouths of a gut or a drain.
Now, everybody, this is where you take pictures.
This is where you take pictures. And as you idle up these guts or drains, you're looking for balls of bait to hang out in these areas. You know, they're just off the main channel. You can see the major creek channel or the main channel there on the right hand side, and then you've got these little guts, these little drains coming off of it, stemming off of it, and that bait and bass will get in there and hold in those areas because they can sink down if they need to get out of any current. They're out of the main channel, and the bait's hanging out there with this colder weather that we have. And then you even have your longer drains. You can see this creek channel that runs all the way up into this spawning flat here on the left. But I'm going to start out, and those are going to be the places that I idle first. And I'm looking for those fish that are hanging out in there. Those drains are helpful because they help you really, it really concentrates or condenses what you're looking at instead of trying to focus on a huge flat or a huge point,
I mean,
right?
and I mean, you got to think of it this way. I mean, these fish do gather in these places.
Yes.
So, I mean, if it's one of those things where you're just running all over the place, and you know where there's a good ditch or something like that, definitely go check it out. Because I mean, like, there's always going to be fish in
these are not huge places. You can cover them very quickly with an A-rig. You can cover them very quickly with a finesse swim bait, like we talked about with the Kytex, a Demiki. So we pulled into these drains and started graphing them, and very quickly we found some bait balls. But I wanted y'all to have that visual as I talk here about guts and drains. And what we did was we just put the trolling motor down, put it on about 2.5 to 3. That way we can just gently ease up into these drains. And I started dropping a Demiki on them. Yep. And you'd get some risers. And of course I'd marked these fish. I'd seen bait balls and seen these suspended fish around them. And I caught one fairly quickly on the drop shot, or not the drop shot, the Demiki. And the Demiki I was throwing it's kind of like, it's that translucent, got a blue hue to it. And then the head was actually the VMC's Moon Eye with the chartreuse paint on it.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of leaned towards that because the water did have a little bit of stain. So that was something a little bit different than just throwing that fat head, which has the black and the red on the jig head there. So maybe something to think about if you're dropping on those fish. If there's a little bit of stain, be thinking about changing up your colors, just to try to entice a bite. After that, we caught that one really quick and then dropped down on another one, came up, ate it. And I really think, Kelsey, because I had it for a minute and it felt like it had some good weight to it, similar to the first one I caught, but it just came free. I really think it just clamped down on the head of that weight and just never let it,
and
never got a hook in it.
I mean, you guys got to realize these smallmouth, they've got they're like alligators. They've got a crushing force in those jaws. So
Most definitely. I mean, how many times have we been up on Holston or Watauga fishing when they're bedding?
Oh yeah.
And you fight them all the way to the boat,
and then they just open their mouth.
And the hooks never penetrated the worm. So those fish will definitely do that. So we had those two fish on early. We kept on going down, checking out some other drains and fishing, and we found some other bait balls, dropped on those, got some bumps. I never got bit out of them. I would have liked to have, just to figure out if they were stripers or white bass, because Dad did catch a white bass where I got those other two bites out of that drain. So it's like, I want to know, like, are they white bass out here running around? What threw me off is typically a white bass, if it gets around it, it'll be pecking at it a lot.
Oh yeah, they'll drive you nuts.
And they didn't do that. And if it's a striper, typically they'll just demolish it and eat it.
You're going to get a hook set.
Yeah, you're going to get a hook set on them. So they didn't do that. So I'm thinking that those were bass. So I'm hoping that they'll still be hanging around down there, and they will be. But from there, headed on down the lake, checked out a couple other places, tight line. Like I said, the water started to clear as soon as we got through that cut through. So guys, after you got through the cut through on down the lake, it was clearing up and good down there to tight line a minnow, tight line the fly. All of those would be great things to be doing. And we worked around and things just really got slow and we were kind of meandering around. Lots of people down there on the lower end fishing. So we just kind of looked around, got a good idea of what the lake looked like and called it a day. So ultimately in the boat, we had one keeper.
Yeah.
And then caught that short fish on the tight line, that power bait minnow that Fred talked about at the meeting and stuff. So Kelsey, we're both going at this from two different standpoints. You're going in blind somewhat, and we both know how hard it is. Yeah, I can sit here and tell you what I saw or what I did, but it's hard to follow just doing what somebody else did or what they say to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's your game plan? What are you thinking going into this thing on Saturday?
My game plan is basically, fish my strengths. Fish those areas that I've done well in the past. I know they're normally good spots this time of year. I'm going to be focusing on those southern facing, the northern banks. And I'm going to be looking for bait fish, and I'm going to be trying to find where those fish are. I'm going to have anything from finesse to not finesse in the boat, basically. I mean, I do think that if we get some wind, whatever we get coming up, you could go down there and catch some on an A-rig. I mean, you find those bait balls, find the fish underneath them, and I mean, you can look back and see what we've done in the past, and we've done pretty good on it in the past. So I mean,
right.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna have a tight line, silver buddy.
All right, but let's break down your
Okay,
morning. So
okay.
what do you want to do?
Morning.
What do you think in the morning? Because we're gonna have a 25-degree morning. And like I said, guys, y'all throw in here on the comments if you want to about what you're thinking or what you think will be the best technique for the day or win it. But and throw in what you think maybe the winning weight will be, and we'll talk about that here at the end. But the morning's going to be cold, 25 degrees. What are you going to start out with there?
As the day progresses, I'm going to start out with my finesse more styles in the morning and work my way up. And as the day goes on, gets warmer, those fish, I do think they're going to move up a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're going to get more active. That's when I'm going to start throwing more like my crankbaits on some of these banks. I'm going to throw, I mean, nothing crazy. I mean, like a rock crawler,
right,
or maybe try and find some on an A-rig.
So even if you go shallow with a crankbait, you're still thinking something with some depth.
Yes, I'm thinking, probably the 8 to 12 foot range is where I'm thinking with a crankbait right now this time of year.
Okay, definitely. All right, so I'm gonna stay similar. I'm gonna roll in first thing in that morning. I'm gonna roll back into some of these guts and drains, and instead of like idling over them and looking to see if they're there, I'm not even gonna try to disturb them. I'm gonna slide in with an A-rig, and I'm gonna fish for them first.
Yep.
Go in the drain, and then I'm gonna turn around and come back out of the drain with a Damiki. And I know Dad's probably gonna be slinging a silver buddy around me.
The death blade.
The death blade. And I hope I don't get a hook in me.
But I mean, you guys, one thing talking about just creeping in there and fishing for them first, especially this time of year. These fish are under some pressure.
Yeah.
These guys go in here. I mean, you got to think these lakes, they're known for catching cold water bass.
Yeah, and there's tournaments going on weekend after weekend. So
these fish get so finicky. So I mean, definitely going in with some stealth.
Some stealth is big.
Is key.
So I'm going to go in there that way, come back out. So I'll be running that in the morning, and then as we go through, I think if those drains, if I see them there in those drains, I'm going to draw me about a mile radius from that area where I found these fish. And I'm going to go run those bluffs, probably throwing a fly and a power bait minnow.
Yep.
And then just be kind of rotating those areas. And then like we talked about with David's question about the northern banks, the southern facing banks, I'm going to go run there probably in the afternoon, 12 or later, and look for me some jerkbait fish. Because one thing we didn't talk about that was on there was I was thankful there's still some wind. They're calling for about like 11, 12 mile an hour winds on Saturday. So I'm thankful that we're going to have some wind still that could be causing some movement in the water. Oh, yeah. I don't want it to be standstill. So that's what my game plan is for that day coming up on Saturday going into it. Guys, remember that off limits goes into effect on Friday morning. So we'll have that 24-hour off limits before the tournament. But that's always the thing about February. I can't stand February because you just don't know if those fish that you found are going to bite and that pattern's going to be the deal for today. I feel like in the springtime as we get further into like March and April, like
They get more predictable.
They get predictable. I can put a crankbait in my hand and just keep going, or put a
You're
spinnerbait
going
in
to get
my
one
hand,
somewhere,
and
yeah.
you're going to get one. These are those days where if you don't change, if you don't listen to what's going on, you're going to come in with nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what stresses me out the most about those February events. So we're almost time to wrap this thing up. We've gotten through our agenda here. We've talked about our plans. We've talked about what's going on, and we'll just recap really quick, guys, that not 6:30. That'd be way too early. But safe flight to 3 p.m. is our times for this tournament. We're going out of 25E. Be sure to get there early to beat some of the traffic. Take your time getting put in the water, and that way it's going to be a lot less stress on you. And be kind to others. Be courteous. A lot of people are just now getting their boats back out for this first tournament of the year, and for these other first tournaments that are kicking off. So be courteous to them. As you're putting in, be thoughtful about others when you're pulling out, because you are going to have some cold air there. We may have some ice on the ramps, and we do not want to be making it slippery for anybody else. So if you get there early, still take your time getting out of the way, and don't get in a rush. Kelsey, last thing we want to do, wait. I want to know two things. I want to know what the winning weight's going to be, okay? And I want to know what the big fish weight is going to be. Not for each species. We're not to that point yet, but just what's the big fish going to be for the tournament. And guys, this tournament is brought to y'all by Knoxville TVA Credit Union, one of our partners for this Real Talk Live. And we got a special big bass for this first event is sponsored by Piney Pond. So the Big Bass Award, $50 gift card. So a little extra on the line for this first big bass of the year. So Kelsey, give it to me. What's going to be our winning weight? And guys, if you all have any predictions or anything you want to put in there, put it in there now and we'll talk about it. But what do you think the winning weight's going to be, and what do you think the big bass is going to be?
Okay, so just putting a lot of thought into it. I know it's going to be, I have a feeling it's going to be a tougher tournament. Mm-hmm. I'm still going to say 15.5 pounds.
Oh gosh, you're saying that somebody's going to...
I think somebody's going to...
Okay.
I think somebody's going to go down on that lower end and catch them. I think somebody's going to do it.
I think the cold front's going to stymie us.
A little bit.
I think that we're going to struggle a little bit. I think that for us, 13 to 14 pounds will win it.
Okay.
And then now give me what you think about the big fish.
I'm going to say 3.5.
Okay, 3.5. So you don't think we're going to bust the 4 pound?
I just feel like it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be a tough day.
Okay. Well, there you go, guys. He thinks 3.5 pounds going to be our big fish.
3 3/4.
3
I'll give you 3 3/4.
Okay. I think somebody's going to bust a 4 1/4. Okay, between 4 and 4 1/4 for that. I think the winning weight I've already told you is going to be around 13 pounds. Guys, David, thank y'all for interacting, talking with us. We enjoy doing these shows for y'all. This is our preview show for Cherokee. The next show that we do is going to be the recap show. So we're going to have a lot of information to bring back to you from our top 3. Talk to them about what they did out there on the lake. Talk to them about what worked for them, what areas of the lake they were on. Because I always find it interesting to see what plays. If somebody went way up the lake and found them in some stained water shallow, or if somebody focused on the lake, the lower end, and what they were doing. So guys, appreciate y'all watching. We are going to wrap this thing up. Again, thank you to those partners that we have, Knoxville TVA Credit Union, Uncle Ray's. Thank you to Tri-City Logistics that are helping us out with this Real Talk Live show. Kelsey, it's been fun. Guys, we'll see y'all next time on the recap show for this. Hope to see y'all Saturday on the lake. See you guys.
Stay safe.